All right, we are live.
Hello.
Welcome to Project Raising for Culture Creation. Thank you, Richie and Kylie, for joining us. Adriel and I are like always here. Do you want to give us a brief rundown, Richie, of what culture creation is, or if I said it wrong, the actual name of it, and then what you're asking?
Yeah, sure. So it's Culture Creator, and yeah, it's just a small project of mine. The idea is to get a group of people together and see if we can refine a culture together that is directed more at building stronger bonds, taking care of one another more effectively, becoming more effective as a group. Just, you know, it's pretty broad in terms of the things that I'm hoping to achieve with it, which means it's going to be quite difficult to really communicate to the people and to other people, you know, what the scope is. But my hope is that we can find a few that make the project kind of self-sustaining. I'd like it to be really goal-orientated, so that we're always doing something new and we're learning new skills and developing, you know, having personal growth. Yeah, that's kind of it so far.
All right, were those the aspirations in there? As part of it, you want help?
Yeah. Well,
my pen wasn't working, so I didn't really, and I can't read my writing now, but to find a way to make it self-sustaining, and you want to remain goal-oriented. I believe when I read the paper you had written, it's very like personal development meets actual, like a project, but not a long-term project, more of like a day project, more of something that you can get right away. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm just going to put Eric on the screen.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to have lots of different projects over the span of time. So at the moment in the document that's up there, I've divided the sessions to the conversation side. So that's where we do like a group meditation. We come up with an ecology of practices that we can you know, do together, and then do some sense making to learn to really communicate with one another and build some overlapping semantic mapping. And then the second week, or, you know, however we've spaced it out, is centered around going out and doing something. So we might go and clean like a river, like clear up rubbish, or we might learn a skill. Maybe there's someone in the group who's got a skill that they could teach the group. And part of the point of that is that we have this rolling leadership ethos about it. So rather than any one person being the leader or like the core organizer or something like that, everyone takes their turn at developing those skills and having that responsibility, so that they can, you know, if there's a thing that comes up and we need to organize, then the most competent person in that domain can step up and take the leadership, and then you know, lead the group. And I guess part of the challenge will be figuring out what as a group we can go out and do. I mean, there are a couple of ideas, but it's the balance between finding things that are useful and finding things that are fun and interesting.
So where are you in this process? Do you have a group and you're looking for things to do, or you're looking to start the group, or you want things to do before you recruit the group?
So I have a small group, but we haven't started practicing yet. I have one of the people in the group who I'm going to have a conversation with sometime soon, just to lay out all of the details and get her thoughts on them. I initially spoke to her a while ago, just saying that I was concerned about, you know, the trajectory of things, and I was like, we need to come up with some kind of solution. so that we can, weather the future better. And she said that she's, knows a lot of people thinking about the same sorts of things. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a creation process because I have a lot of ideas, but it also depends on what other people are interested in. But yeah, any kind of feedback, any kind of thoughts would be good. I know it's pretty vague at the moment, but
we can figure out, we can brainstorm, we can do both really, but like brainstorm how you find those people, or we can also brainstorm some of those activities that are both useful and enjoyable to do, or ways to kind of co-create them, or any other thing you would like us to work on for the project.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the growth of the group, I don't think that'll be too difficult. But the key is really to grow it slowly in the beginning, to really, get the culture locked in. But activities, maybe brainstorm some ideas about things that we can actually go out and do.
All right, sounds good. And you're looking to do these meetings, how often are they? Every week, every month?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm thinking weekly, but it might be better to be sort of twice a week. Twice every month, maybe once a month. It depends, like we'll have to play around with the potency just to make sure that it's still interesting. Yeah.
Is it, since we're at a project raising, and part of what inspired the project raising was the idea of a barn raising, right? Where all of your neighbors come and help you raise a barn. And then when you need a barn raised, theoretically they're there to help you. Would it interest you to do something like that, where you're actually putting a call out to neighbors on, like, what do you need done, right? A fence painted, a garden started, and so that's also a way to like find new people, but also to like focus on one person's project, right? The issue is that just like this, you might have more people interested in being the person having their fence painted than necessarily painting other fences. But if, depending on who those people are, right? If they're seniors, if they're young parents, people who really need that, then I think it would feel good to do it. You're not going to feel like you're being taken advantage of. But does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool idea. Because something that's involved with the communities and more of a human-oriented thing, something that's helpful for people, because there are a lot of people who are just down on their luck. So that's a good idea. I like that one.
And also just like a list of, because that's like people can put forward, I need this done, or people could also put forward, hey, there's a creek by my house that really needs cleaning up. Maybe they even want to come and help create that, and do things like that. Someone had posted, one of the Facebook users, we haven't been going live on Facebook and YouTube very often, so it's interesting because it says both. We'll just cover Eric and Richie's faces for a second. That they go out and say free conversation in large crowds, and that's an interesting thing of doing something. But my guess is that's not what you're looking for, because we have a plethora of conversations in our lives, us five, you know what I mean? And going out and finding more conversation. But maybe other people don't have that, and it might be something that you want to do.
Richie, I'm curious, what are your personal circumstances? What's it like immediately around where you live? Where do you live? What's it like immediately around you?
I mean, it's a nice neighborhood, lots of forests and trees and things like that. I'm kind of still within the city limits. I don't know. It's kind of
You live like in an apartment building or in a house, or?
I live in a house with two other people and a cat.
Okay. Okay, and like on a street with other houses, kind of thing. Yeah, that. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, Listen, I mean, I know this sounds trivial and mundane, but is there anything, I mean, I don't know how well you know your neighbors, but is there anything that needs doing in the immediate environment? A creek that needs cleaning up, a barn that needs putting, a barn that needs painting, you know what I mean? You know, something immediate like that, you know, in your, that you could just go knock on doors. I mean, this is kind of unnecessary, it seems to me, at that level, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is something that I can do, but I think that the thing that I'm really interested in is just the forming those bonds with a group of people who are interested initially in the concept, because I think the neighbors either side sort of yeah, I mean, I work with my neighbor over that way, and I've met both of them, but yeah, it's just yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to lay this on you. This is just something that's been troubling me a lot, particularly recently. But it's been troubling me a lot recently. Is that, you know, we try and find a group of people with whom we share ideas so that we can explore ideas about how to build better communities, and yet what's right outside on our front door we don't. And I'm this is me. I mean, I'm not trying to put this on any, but this is, I feel this a lot, that, you know, what's just, you know, sorry, I'm getting a little bit tangled up in a thought here, but do you understand what I'm saying? There's an immediacy and a directness that we seem to be losing in all of this talking about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've got, yeah, the garden is right here, so we can tend to that. Yeah.
Because sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're trying to find groups of people that you can, like, alternate, have a conversation about what we're going to do, and then go out and do a thing, right? And I really applaud that. That gap between talking about doing stuff and actually doing stuff is one that we really do need to bridge. But that's basically it, right? Get together, talk about doing something, do the thing, then get back together, talk about it. How did it go? How can we build on it? Do the next thing. Is that basically the idea?
Oh yeah, it's definitely more complicated than that. So the conversations, I want people to really get a sense of what's happening in the world, because I think a lot of people sort of think about this stuff, but they distract themselves a lot. And I think we really need to sort of build up a group picture of where things are going. I think my primary aversion to going out and talking to my neighbors about this stuff, like, is just it's just the scope of what needs to be talked about. I don't think I can just rope my neighbors into, like, going out and helping them with things that they need help with. Yeah, that can be a thing, but it's the conversation stuff that you know, I feel like, especially, and I think it's a thing that my generation is stuck with quite a lot. So I'm trying to reach out to people my age at the moment. So we've got some kind of, like, core, yeah.
So it's hard if you, it's like the group and the project at the same time. But there's a few things that were coming up for me that I wanted to share and see if they land. Which one was what the Facebook user had suggested, doing something like, you have one person already, setting up a barn raising type fence painting. Sorry, my brain is so not working today. That with a sign there that kind of says, hey, do you want to come help participate, right? Do you want to come and work together, come and join, with a way for them to join. So like an easy Facebook group or a website where people can find out what another thing is. They can suggest what to do. But for practices that get you to, you want a group that has a practice that can have like a real culture. And then part of that is doing actual projects. And I don't know if anyone else knows what a Quaker is. I just encountered the idea that yesterday. I didn't realize. I'm going to actually look into going to one of their services, because what they do for a service is the kids go to their own room like Sunday school, but they are in a room silent, walking around or sitting, and when you feel called to speak, you speak. And so no one has a sermon, no one has, you don't come with something prepared. It's just like, as you feel called to speak, you speak, and then it goes back to silence. And that sounds like a really beautiful form of group meditation, but also kind of a way to almost come up with an idea for what you do together, right? Like get people together and have a brainstorming session with a loud silence of like meditation with, hey, this is what came up for me. And I feel like that might be the best of both worlds, because they're going to be like, if you're in that room and someone comes up with an idea, you already feel like you're part of that idea and are going to be more likely to want to do that, and that generate something for someone else, right? Hey, my grandma needs her fence painted. Like having, I don't know if that lands with you, whether that's something that.
Yeah, I do like that idea. I mean, I was thinking there is probably things, there's often a network already set up in terms of, people need help for this and that and the other. So it's a case of just uncovering it and then, finding out how to become a part of it. So yeah, I'm sure we'll find that as a group. Yeah, and I like the sound of that practice. I think that would be quite an interesting thing to do. I've done something a little bit similar to that in another group. But yeah, I think just trying a lot of different things and feeling out what makes sense to the group.
Yeah, and then having more...
and keeping things fresh, because really.
Sorry, continue.
Because I mean, I think the idea is just to. That's right. I think the idea is just to keep us talking, so that we can process things, because it's hard to just pick a topic and then work through all of the areas that topic touches, or to try to intentionally get the thing that needs to be expressed out there, because people don't always work in a straightforward way like that.
Richie, I'm wondering, have you experimented at all with meetup.com?
Yeah. I've been to a couple of different meetups.
Yeah.
I was originally going to start a meetup around this, but I think framing the group is quite a difficult thing. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that was the thing that was standing out to me as well. The difficulty with framing, because you want to sort of have the filter of the people coming in that are actually on the same page as you, but also at the same time have the information about what you're doing getting out widely enough that it's a sustainable group. I've seen some really good and some really bad groups come together on meetup.com, and it does seem to be very much about how well the purpose of the group is defined that makes a difference as to whether it works well or not. But yeah, if you've seen it, I'll just leave it at that. That was my input for now.
Thanks.
My internet is very laggy, so I can't really talk too much during this because I interrupt people, and then with the lag, it's even worse. But I guess I'm just looking for more guidance as to what you want from us, Richie. Like, what you would like us to focus on, because we can.
Well, has anyone got any experience doing something similar to this?
Not like in person, but it seems like there's actually a fair amount of overlap with this session, with the trying to create a community of people, where it's not an in-person thing like cleaning up a creek or painting a fence, but in this case it's trying to raise a project and figure it out together. And what I think I'm hearing the friction is right now with the project, it sounds like the project is more about the framework around the group and like what are the agreed upon rules and, you know, how do we decide who the leader is, that sort of thing, rather than the group going and doing the thing, right? Whether it's painting events or cleaning up a creek. It seems like that activity is partially to give the group a reason, but then partially also to act as a test of that framework. Like if we build a group using this framework, can they go out and paint a fence, or does it fall apart because, you know, two people are trying to be a leader? And so it seems like it's the question of, do you build the group first and then try to see where you can, you know, apply principles of a framework and like add a single rule to the group, try to emphasize it, try to get buy-in and see how the group reacts without the group already being there to build that framework, if that makes sense? Like you start with the group and you're the only one trying to build the framework to start with, and then you see who is open to it, versus trying to say, I only want to build this group around people who want to put that framework in and are trying to answer questions about how you build that kind of a community, which to me, it seems super useful, but also hard to explain in a way that like causes people to go out and do something and join and add in, as opposed to there is an immediate call to action to a group around, hey, let's go clean up that creek, or starting a meetup.com group off of something like that. And then you're there trying to sort of answer some questions, figure out what that framework might look like. And for lack of a better term, kind of like trying to take over or have two reasons for the group to operate at once, if that makes sense. Like one for the purpose of the activity, and then the other one for trying to figure out what makes this group work. What's the framework that we all say, hey, us all agreeing on these rules seems to work, but if we add this rule, it falls apart.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the character of the group as we start it. So the people that I'm starting the group with, I know fairly well already.
Right.
So I think it'll be a case of tapping into their interests and then
how many people
trying to expand. It's so there's like about 5 that are likely to show up in the first session, and there are about 15 who are you know, within the group, because I've started a Facebook group.
Right.
So, and you know, they've invited a bunch of people and that sort of thing. But yeah, I expect to have about 5 or 6 people in the first session, and then I think it'll just be, yeah, I'm trying to like, I think I'm going to start with the why. Like, why is it worth spending any kind of time trying to build a culture, trying to build a community?
Right.
And I think like I have the sense that in the zeitgeist of at least my generation and probably wider than that, that things are coming undone, and you know, I don't want to go too far down the kind of the scary road, but I think there's a positive and a negative vision that is worth sharing with people, and then it's like, well, what do we want to do about it, given that we're in this scenario where we could, you know, let things slip and things could go really badly, or we could try and work together and try to reinvigorate a mode of being that is natural to people, working together as a team, having strong bonds and connections. Yeah, those sorts of things. But
okay.
I think yeah, I think having someone, because I'm hoping that the conversation that I have with this other person is, you know, brings a parallax to the group, because I think I'm pretty bad at explaining that sort of stuff because it's so large in scope. So hopefully she can help me refine that before we go into the first session.
If you had to pick one thing, what would be the primary goal of this? Is it culture building? Is it conversations? Is it sense making? Is it doing stuff in the real world? What's the core thing?
Well, it's culture building. But I mean that itself is not a specific thing. That's pretty broad.
So it's an
like when
inquiry into what culture building might look like, kind of thing. That is that reasonable?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it's just prototyping, like how to actually get something like that moving, and how to actually touch on the things that I think are really important. So I think philosophy is really important. I think ethics is really important. I think sense making is really important, and I just want to find a context in which we can dig into those things into enough depth so that we develop them as serious skills and build serious connections. Yeah, and that's the primary focus.
Richie, have you read the micro solidarity stuff in the game B space?
I've seen it. I'm not sure if I've read it though. Oh no, I think I have. It's just like a one-page thing, quite short, isn't it?
I believe it's an entire website. I believe the guy's name's Richard, right? It's like the other Richard.
Is that?
I feel like he's worked through a lot of this stuff. Google doesn't even have micro solidarity. Seriously? Come on. Anyway, I'll send you the stuff after. If you would like. But yeah, that seems to be like, it's been so long since I've read it. Plus so long being a month ago. Yay, brain. That he has a framework for like getting a group of people together and having them work on a project. That is part of the framework, is like how many people. I think he says like 7 is ideal, and then having them work through resiliency. It's more about group resiliency, like I think from his side. So maybe that's not, but I feel like there's something in there for your project as well.
Yeah. I think he talks about how you've got like a single individual, then you've got a group of 3 individuals, and then you've got a group of 7, and then you can sort of like it scales up, and you've got different. They're optimal for different types of things. Something to that effect. I do remember seeing that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff out there like this. I guess my approach is just to go in there and try and feel it out as best as possible. I think that just suits my learning style, and there's just so many nuances that will be, the particular characteristic of the individuals, the context, all of these things have their own flavor to it. And I think, if this initial stab at building this culture doesn't work, I think it'll mean trying to find people who are more specifically interested in this. Like we've got a Game B group that is setting up within Melbourne at the moment, which could be another potential start for it. So it's kind of people who are already in the know to some extent, and I think it's a lot easier to build something or to start running as a group and then finding that momentum, because it really is having that foundational knowledge that I think is a motivating factor to keep pursuing this kind of thing. Like we wouldn't all be here if we didn't understand what the stakes were and what the situation is to some extent. So I think, it's about finding that. But yeah, I'm just testing things. I haven't really done anything like this before, but it seems really important to me because I think John Vervaeke is really onto something with his concept of the religion that's not a religion. I think we need some kind of cultural bonding framework or frameworks.
Yeah, we I sent out, at least to Adriel, I think I sent it to Kylie as well. Probably not Eric, but I think we also talked about it in our mega group. So maybe the Bret Weinstein talk, the one that you had sent on the 4th do you call it? I had the name written
Fourth
down.
Frontier.
Fourth Frontier. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to talk about that. We could chat about that and what it was that maybe resonated with you around this project in particular.
Yeah. So I'm just playing with this idea at the moment that we, rather than spending our lives just working, I think it would be much more satisfying for people to spend their lives doing things that are more meaningful for them, more community orientated. Like we've just got so much stuff, and we can't really. I'm not sure if it's entirely true, but it doesn't seem like we can keep increasing the amount of resources that we're pulling out of the earth and destroying environments and things like that. So rather than getting people to focus on trying to maximize that with their time in order to pay the bills and things like that, I'm hoping that we can find ways to cooperate as communities and enjoy our time doing that, getting our well-being from those kinds of activities. So that's kind of how I interpret the fourth frontier, because I mean, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, there was a lot in there. As he said, he condensed like a 6-month full-time course into an hour. At the very end, he talks about this engineered stable abundance, that in order for us to be in the better half of our genetics, where we're in abundance and we're kinder to each other, rather than when we have scarcity and we show up a lot less, that in order to be able to have that peace from humanity, we need engineered stable abundance. So people need to feel like they live in an abundant, peaceful world that's taking care of their needs, and it can't be a lie. It has to be something that's authentically real for them inside. And I think that you're onto something huge here, because it's like the stuff you're never going to have enough of. It's designed so that it doesn't actually fill anything. It's all about, and it's just accumulation. Our planet can't handle that, but our planet can absolutely handle the abundance of connection and of purpose and doing stuff. And so the more we can tap into that piece for people, even if it's 5 people or 7 people, if they already have that sense of engineered stable abundance because they have the connections, then from that space, they're just like a little better off to help other people, who then are a little better off to help other people and other people. And
I mean, the key is to find something that's satisfying for people, that's long-term sustainable, that isn't just burning through more and more resources. Because the trouble with burning through more and more resources is eventually we're going to create scarcity for ourselves, because we would have consumed too much of the environment, and then we'll fight other nations, other people, ourselves, in order to satisfy the growth and the consumption need. And it's just it's really, I mean, potentially the thing is we can potentially just develop technology that can just keep going through, so we can just do this for another 200 years or something like that. But it seems like if we keep going down the technology road, the economy and the kind of the nature of society is just going to become more and more brutal, because we don't have an ethical framework that we work within. So there's no authority to say what's right and what's wrong, and that's a real issue, which nobody seems to understand at the moment. But I think they will in 50, 100 years time.
I feel like we're already starting to feel that deep in ourselves. Like that's where a lot of the unrest comes from individually, is that we do not feel in any way engineered stable abundance. We do not feel, even if we're the part of the 1%, we don't feel abundant. Not that I know. And we don't feel at peace. We don't feel, whereas like the idea that an outside authority, some religion, some government can dictate to you that you need to act better without giving you the capacity to be able to act better. Like all we actually have to do is have engineered stable abundance, because then you just do act better, right? Like you can share with your neighbors and be shared with and have trust that you're going to be taken care of. You don't need to hoard resources. You don't need to accumulate things. but it can't be something that is done from on high. Like, it has to be something that is truly felt in the individual. And to me, like, getting a group of people together and asking them, like, what would help you feel more abundant, right? Like, right now on this planet, what would make you feel at complete perfect abundance and peace, but like, what would help you get that little bit of extra help so that you are able to give more and be more and find that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think straight away there's just building a community will be so satisfying for people, just because we're really disconnected at these days. You know, spending a lot of time on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. So the meaning crisis sort of has rendered a lot of us dissatisfied and depressed and all these kinds of things. So I think just trying to restart those connections and actually address some of the more meaningful things will, you know, have its own, hopefully, boost to people's felt experience of things. And I think, yeah, the personal growth, just going out and doing things and challenging yourself and just being noticed. I think that's one thing I'm noticing a lot within people, is just this need to be seen, to be recognized, to be valued. So giving people a space to find a niche that they can occupy and they can be that person within a community. I think people really need that, because originally the group was going to be centered around this idea of tell me your story. So I was going to go out and start a meetup group, and people were going to show up and just tell me a story that they needed to tell, because I was noticing a lot of the people in my life would just talk, and they'd just tell me a story about, you know, whatever it was that was on their mind. And I think part of that is just people need to process their experience, and part of it is people need to know that they matter to other people. But I talked to a psychologist about that particular idea, and he said it's probably going to be pretty risky, just because you'll have people turning up and they'll be like, because there's kind of no constraints and people just talk and talk and talk, and then yeah. But,
Can I just jump a little bit to this notion of abundance? Because I mean, I agree with almost everything Bret says, but I do think there's a little bit of a danger in that. There's implicit in it is kind of this assumption that, assuming that abundance can be engineered, that feeling of emptiness, you know, that hungry ghost thing, will just go away. And I'm not convinced of that. I'm not absolutely convinced of that. Abundance is also a place within, right? I mean, yes, you can't. It's very, very difficult to feel abundance within when you want in the real world, right? But abundance is also a place within, right? So I'm slightly leery of this engineered abundance being a panacea sort of thing, and I'm not saying you see it like that, but I'm saying there's a danger it can be viewed like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about the other day is just this idea of the need for objective verification. And what I mean by that is, I think no matter how much you're getting positive reinforcement from a community, I think there's this need to be like, well, like, especially, you know, if you're more kind of dominant as a person or more competitive, you're kind of like, well, can I just out compete? You can't really, tricky one to explain, but if you can accumulate leverage against people by doing a particular thing, like starting a business or something like that, people can't argue with that. Like, it works, and you know, there's no question that it does work. And to
Is this my internet connection or Richie's?
I think it's his. He said sort of ups and downs throughout the session.
Okay.
But this is the biggest hiccup
I'm
so
never
far.
sure whether it's me. I'm never sure whether it's me.
Yeah, no, it's him because like while he's been freezing like this, I've been watching the other panels and like I can always see you slightly adjusting, Eric. So it shows that all the other bandwidth is fine. And Jubilee, you're muted.
Are you saying I'm a fidget, sir?
Probably not as much as me. I know I'm always changing this and adjusting but
I removed him and then put him back.
Okay.
And that did not work. So now it's frozen as just nothing. Wait till I see him moving in there, and then if he comes back and he's the sixth person, we'll see.
Sounds good.
But as to what you said, Eric, about the abundance, I agree that like if all we have is resource abundance, which is both one of the most difficult things to obtain, and it doesn't deal with the shadow. It doesn't deal with like
necessary but not sufficient, right? Is the phrase that comes to mind. Necessary but not sufficient. Yeah.
Which is why, exactly. And yet, like if we stick with the other form of abundance, which is like the internal abundance, the abundance of connection and community, the abundance of like you are seen and respected is the wrong word. You're seen as worthy for exactly who you are, as much as we can do that in small groups. Then there's already that sense of the abundance that does get you there, the abundance that is the internal piece that helps you grow, and that's available now. That's not something we need to wait till game B for.
As far as I'm concerned, it all starts in here, right? All of it starts in here. Yeah, absolutely.
And it is for an individual. I mean, I've reached there mostly for myself, but there's a big piece that it's hard to get there by yourself. It's hard to see yourself as worthy without other people seeing you as worthy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And so the best thing we can do for other people once we've went through that shit show is to see them and love them where they are so that they don't have to do that journey alone and be lonely. They already get that sense of abundance. Like, you don't need to love you. We'll love you until you can, kind of thing, as whatever as that sounds.
I mean, another part of abundance is rather than having more is needing less, right? So that's being content with less is also a pathway towards abundance, right?
Absolutely. It's a pretty important pathway, but like, just like the abundance, like if everyone around you has a car and everyone around you has a house and everyone gets to go on vacation, there's that sense of you're lacking, right? Whereas if everyone else is starving and you have food on your table, you're going to feel like you have more abundance than they do. But that isn't true abundance. Like that, like it can't be compared to other people. It has to be, I'm abundant because I have this, not because other people don't, not because I have more or less than someone else, just I have it and they can too.
It's in fact, even lack of want is even a better word than abundance, right? Because it's not about loads of stuff. It's just about an absence of fear, an absence of fear of wanting. You know what I mean? It's that.
Yes, we've come up against language again. Redo the whole.
Well, I think there's biological reasons why we have this kind of well, they've got this, I should have that as well. But there's also, like, if you come to an equilibrium, then you've also got this, well, I feel like I'm better than people, so I'm gonna try and prove that I am better than people, and then that's like there's this dissatisfaction against mediocrity. So we've got kind of these two conflicting drives within our collective psyches, which I think are going to be really difficult to mediate, because we're going to still need to find ways to compete against one another. Well, we need to figure out outlets for these natural impulses that don't lead to falling back into game theory. That's kind of,
well, that's what
I think that's going to be a really difficult.
Isn't that exactly what sport is for?
Yeah,
as an outlet, exactly that, right? Sports and games, that's exactly what they're for.
For me, the analogy is sports is in the Olympics. Like the Olympics has one gold medal winner and everyone else is a loser. If you're there in your sport to only get the gold medal, chances are you're not going to be happy. Whereas if you're there to compete at your best level, including you're competing against people, right? You're not there to get nothing, but you're there to get, like, there's a difference between the internal competition of like me trying to be my best. And if you're seeking it from the outside, even if you win the gold medal, but you didn't show up and do your best, you should actually feel shitty. If you showed up and did your best and gave it your all and you didn't even get bronze, you should feel good. It's not necessary. It's like, who else showed up on the field shouldn't matter, but it does.
But though, there's one crucial thing, right? If you were to turn up every day, try your hardest, and all you're doing is to try and beat your time against the clock, right? And you turn up every day and you train as hard as you can just to try and improve your time, you are not going to get as good as you would if you raced against people. Yeah, that visceral competition in the moment against another human being. You know what I mean? There is no substitute for that, for the driving forward it can be. You know what I mean? It's harnessing that, taking the destructive war, win-lose thing out of it. That's the key. But yeah, you can never drive yourself as hard as other people in competition against you can drive you.
I think it also gets hard when you're talking about if you're trying to compete in something that you're good at, right? Like there's all these different sports. Like, I don't want to compete in basketball. Oh, I think maybe I can do long distance running. I'll try that. But then you get, people like Jeff Bezos, and they're like, well, I'm not good at that, but I can do really good at this sport of, acquiring a lot of wealth and running a business in a certain way and doing something like that, where now that gives him a stage to compete on the world stage. That's his Olympics. And if there is no outlet, then what do you do? Like if if the next Jeff Bezos looks at all the sports in the Olympics and says, meh, I don't want to do any of those, looks at something that he can do that maybe
I want to create a brand new game just for me, and see who else wants to play.
It's a game that is there, but that competing in it is damaging. I think that's where you run a risk. Like it's sort of figuring out, right? Like there's a sport of target shooting, but maybe we're saying, hey, maybe we don't want the sport where we're shooting at people. We're going to agree that one's off the table because that's something else entirely. And it's talking about where we're agreeing that it's okay to compete here, and these other areas where we're like, no, because in order to get to the top and to have that, if you're competing against someone, it helps you grow. And it was like the picture that they took a couple of months ago of the person who ran the first, I think it was the first under 2 hour marathon or something like that. There was some world record that was broken. But if you look at the picture, there's like 6 people right behind them. The fact that they're all competing together, it's moving that for everyone, which when you get into certain sports, right, like extreme capitalism, you get into, okay, but everyone competing this and moving this up and raising that bar is incredibly damaging everywhere else. And how do you identify that? And how do we say that's a valid sport? That one's too dangerous.
Yeah. I just want to, we have 10 minutes left for this session. Richie, is there anything else you want us to concentrate on? Are you good with just having a
just keep going. I'm just going to figure it out as I go along. I think that's just my style.
Well, the theme.
We're good.
Right, the theme that's sort of coming up to me here is around feedback. So that's how I understood like that engineered abundance to be. It's like giving the feedback at that right level, which means that you've got a sense of having enough, but also not pushing past that limit. And I think that it might be a bit the same with everything, like in terms of whether you're just trying to compete with yourself or trying to compete out with other people in the Olympics or whatever the case may be. It's like it's always about like getting the feedback as to fitness, like as to how appropriate something is within a certain circumstance. I'm actually wondering if, in some ways, this almost applies for what Richie's looking at doing as well, is to kind of go, what is it that we can go and do as a group that then gives us the feedback to know whether this is something that's healthy to have within our cultural setting or unhealthy. So it's almost like going and trying something and then reflecting on it and giving each other, the the feedback to kind of go, okay, so is this making us all feel more abundant, or is it making us feel like we're missing out on things? Are we feeling like it's fair? Are we feeling like it's ethical? Is it, to try to get some of those, I don't know, almost like feedback loop in place, but using that, the cultural mechanism to shape it, if that makes sense. Anyway.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of things that so wisdom is something I'm really focused on. Like, I think wisdom is a great way to more accurately focus a group of people. So if somebody is like, I'm winning all of these things, I should be getting a bigger share of the pie than anyone else. That's potentially persuasive if you don't have the foresight to see where that leads. And communication is another really important one. How can we effectively communicate with one another our points of view and really come to a decision about, how we structure ourselves, and just metabolizing some of those potentially dangerous aspects of our personalities. Like, it's because it seems like because most of history we've sort of always been in this crunch time. We've been always like we haven't really had the time to deliberate these things. So I think now, while times are so good, I think we need to try and focus and hone that interpersonal communication, the wisdom, the metabolizing of social dynamics. Because I just don't think we've done very well at that at the moment.
I like that phrase, metabolizing social dynamics. I like that phrase very much.
Yeah, and I think that's really it, because a lot of it is people just don't have the space to help to express things in a healthy way. We've got a lot of drug addiction. We've got there's just so much awful stuff in the world, and I think a lot of that is just misplaced emotional energy. Because the way that we treat animals in the farming industry is just so horrific. And I think anyone who really looks at it, you're just like, what the fuck are we doing?
You should come and meet my chickens. You should come and meet my chickens.
We've just kind of normalized
very, very, very happy fat hens who do not know their place and go wandering around.
They don't think they're chickens, huh?
They have no idea that they're chickens.
Yeah. You've got to give them better feedback, Eric. Crises.
We should absolutely have a Game B Airbnb. Game B Airbnb. That's too many B's. Like,
that's
I have a spare room. Go hang out.
That's a brilliant idea. Go and visit each other. Everyone put their places up for. That's a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea. Air Game B or something. Something like that.
Kind of like Game B couch surfing. It sounds like.
Yeah, no, it would be totally couch surfing. And it could just be that.
It is it is couch surfing, but also Air Game B is a brilliant word. Is a brilliant name, because that's what you do. You get to air Game B when you go. You just shoot the shit about. Yeah, you're airing Game B. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. You could actually, if you wanted to, make money out of this. But it's a fucking brilliant idea. Cash in while they're making T-shirts of Game B. Yeah, while they're doing Game B, cash in while you can on the Mimetic Tribe before it dies. Cash in while you can.
Like, I'm good. That seems very Game A.
Well, that was actually.
How do we get T-shirts made for as cheap as possible? Sell them for as much as possible.
Did you see those T-shirts? Those black T-shirts, Game B and the infinity sign. Did you see them?
I think vaguely. I don't remember what.
They cropped up a few days ago. It made me laugh. I think
it was David Fuller.
It did make me chuckle. It did make me chuckle. That's David Fuller's venture, is it? Is he making Game B T-shirts now?
Yeah. Really passionate.
Oh God!
Just
fucking funny. If that's him, that's really funny.
Yes, Richie.
Yeah. So business is actually a thing that the group could potentially do. And then I guess the trick is like finding a way to do that fits with the ethical kind of framework that we pick. And because I would like to become, like, I think the goal of becoming a self-contained unit that self-sustains through, you know, some kind of, because yeah, one of the questions that goes around is like, well, how do we support ourselves going into the transition of game B? How do we move away from game A? And I think one way to do that is just to form groups of people who have the same ethics and try to make money in a way that is most aligned with, you know, because the thing is, we all have to go make money anyway. So for the meantime, we might as well work together, build that into relational skills, and you know, try and construct something together, and creating a work environment where we can, you know, support each other and you know, I mean, getting money involved always introduces new problems, but can we solve those problems? I don't know. But yeah.
Well, you know what, some of what I would love to see in a local area. See, I don't know how long I'm staying here. I've just moved to Sydney. I might only be here for a year, so I'm, you know, reluctant to put down roots. But would be this thing of, like, there's like maker spaces, and there's, you know, like places that sort of focus on, you know, upcycling, and then there's, you know, tool libraries and things like that. And they always seem to be done as these separate pieces. That it would be very interesting to sort of have, you know, like a sort of network weaving going on, you know, like within a community for anything that's sort of, you know, game B-ish, you know, like even if it's like a couple of steps away, to sort of have them, you know, coming together and actually working together.
There have been loads of attempts to do this, Kylie, over the years. Loads of attempts to create like umbrella organizations under which all of these activist groups can get together because they're all on the same team. You know, there's been lots and lots of incarnations of attempts to do this. It's so important. It's so important. It has to happen. No one has yet succeeded. Do let me know if you figure out how to do it.
Well, the main thing I'm thinking is that, you know, like you need a few people, probably a group around the size of what Richie is talking about there, say a dozen people, who are actually members of at least, you know, say that there's 10 in total that you identify, that each person is like a member of, say, 4 of them. You know what I mean? Because it starts to stitch the relationships together. I don't think I would try to go for an umbrella organization. I don't think that can work. I think it's the kind of thing where people are always going to focus on the things that are of most interest to them.
That's exactly what happened every time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder if instead of an umbrella organization, it just becomes sort of like a, you know, game B version of Meetup, where there's a network of people that have all sort of said, I'm interested in this. Sometimes it might be online, sometimes it might be in your area. If you go traveling or you move, you may still want to, you know, access that same network. But then there's like that framework that Richie's talking about, where it's not as like free form as Meetup, where it's here's the group, go do whatever you want for whatever reason, and you know, just keep paying us your meetup.com group fee, and other than that, we don't care. It's like it's the framework for whether it's an online group or an in-person, and whether that in-person is a business or you're trying to clean up creeks. What's common between trying to keep that group together? How do you account for different people, for different values, and then trying to build that so that whatever group it is, you're saying, okay, here's the framework that we said that's worked for all these other groups. Part of it isn't just each group, it's to keep building that framework.
And without the geographic proximity of a group of people, you know, without having a group of people that you can actually be in the same room with or get together with in a bar somewhere locally, do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. It makes it extremely difficult. I mean, to actually do anything in the real world, you know what I mean? It just ends up becoming discussion groups. And when I say just discussion groups, don't get me wrong, they're the most beautiful things in the world. But, you know, but in terms of, you know, taking action in the world, there's and so maybe just accept that that's what you're doing, is you're forming discussion groups, making friends, forming relationships, and who knows what's going to come of those down the road, kind of thing. But without the geographical proximity, I do think the bit of, you know, the part of your loop of agreeing on a thing that you're going to do in the world, going out and doing that, right, and that being part of the process. I see that as being extremely difficult in an online community, unless something occurred to me before that it goes right back to what I was saying at the very, very start of the conversation too, that maybe you could make a commitment within the group each week or each month or whatever. Month might be better. That during the course of the next month, I am going to involve 5 people in my neighborhood in something. I don't know what it is yet. But that's my undertaking, is to involve 5 people in my immediate proximity, right, in a thing that we can all do together, whatever it might be.
Right. Well,
and then you get back together and you tell your stories about what you did, what you tried, what went well, what went badly, have a laugh about it. Do you know what I mean? And then you build the community around the stories of the things that you're doing, and that kind of that sounds to me like it could be really nice.
Totally. And I think the emphasis is on local meetups, right? Where, like, if you on meetup.com, it's an online group, but the whole point is to meet up locally. So you sort of organize into, like, here's my city, and then you see the different meetup groups and you can join them and go out and attend. You have the similar thing, but instead of it just being a random group of people, because meetup.com is very random, it is that, like, the specific purpose, that, like, the culture creator type group, where the whole point, it's not, the groups are a big part of it because that's how it sort of materializes in the world. And I think that's also where you get a lot of your members from. It's sort of 2 different parallel lines. You have your group, your groups as they show up in the world where they're going out and doing things. You'll have people saying, they walk by and see 10 people painting a fence. Oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're going and painting fences in the neighborhood, or cleaning up a creek or whatever. You'll have people who just want to join that. And if you have 5 people show up and there's this layer of, here's how we're operating and why, and we had a meeting and decided to try this new way to operate, so we're going to try it out. You hear that, and the people who are interested might be like, wait, what are you guys talking about? And that's where you get the people joining the higher level group. If you just want to paint fences, just show up and paint fences. That's fine.
And you've got groups within groups then as well, right? Because on one end, you're doing a local meetup group to do the thing that you've been talking about in your online group, right? And so, you've come up with an idea now, something you're going to do locally. You organize a local meetup group about that. You do that thing. And then once a week or once a fortnight, whatever, you get together with your online pals and talk about the thing that you're doing there. And maybe you can cross-fertilize a little bit between the two. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. This has got real potential. It's a beautiful thing.
I think so. And I think one of the biggest things is its ability to, like, if you don't care about that upper level, completely ignore it. Just show up and be with people in your community. You might not actually know it exists, and that's fine. If you're showing up and doing it and working in the community. And in my mind, that also makes the framework stronger. If not everyone involved in the group has full buy-in on every tenet, but they are still, like, the group can still handle that person and can handle the different people coming up, and you start to have your different rules of how to handle the different situations, it becomes a way more flexible, robust thing that can then, set the framework for more and more, but it's able to handle people that don't care and, will try to break the rules and might not know it. So you have, like, that constant reinforcement.
What do you think of all this, Richie? This is your thing. I mean, Adrian and I have got a bit carried away here. This is your thing, though. What do you think of all this?
Yeah. It's good. I just letting people find how they want to participate. Although I do, like, one of the things that I would like to see is that we come to some kind of agreement as a species on some basic things, because I think we really need to build a solid ground philosophically that we all share to some extent, because I think it's necessary in order to solve disagreement.
Sorry, for all human beings or for your group of people?
No room for flat earthers then in your world, no?
Well, the thing is, you can you can be a thing where you can still bring your religion and whatever your religion is, but this is just like just a shared space that we all agree with. It's like, okay, these are the things that we're broadly aiming towards. It
would be lovely
as a species, and then you have your own. What? Sorry.
I think it's very tricky for anything that everyone can agree on is a very, very, very tricky thing. I think the best you can hope for is that within the groups that form broad agreement on those axioms kind of thing. But then there are other groups that have completely different axioms, but there is sufficient cross-pollination, between these groups that some communication, even though it may not be head on, but some communication actually is going on between them. Yeah, there are porous boundaries between them at the individual level and at the small group level. So yeah.
Well, Eric, I think
I think we need to unwind rivalrousness.
Sorry, go on.
I don't think we're going to unwind rivalrousness if we don't have. My internet connection's not very good. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just thinking of something that I'm pretty sure that Eric brought up in a different conversation that we had a while back about the difference between, was it values and strategy? I know the example that you used, Eric, was about
it's from non-violent communication. Yeah.
Have this connection between these two villages on either side of a river, and then what we end up arguing about is actually the strategy of how you do that. But you can agree on those basic needs, and I think if we're going to find some kind of an ethical thing that everybody can agree with, it's going to be that thing of it's going to be needs based. It's going to be what is the actual nature of a human.
It's like Kennedy said, right? We all breathe the same air. We all love our children. You know what I mean? It's that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then trying to get more involved in that. I don't think that that's ever going to work, but we have to find a way to, I think, upregulate those things that we can fairly easily agree that we actually have in common.
And
really basic principles. So
self-evident, right?
Well, fairness matters to people. Like fairness matters to everybody. Like what fairness is or how you get there, like everyone will disagree on that, but we'll probably agree that we want some kind of fairness. And that's the thing. We all have that. So I think it's I actually don't think it's very far away. I think it's already there. It's just that we need to, as I said, we need to upregulate it, I think, and expect too much.
Yeah,
You
just nailed it. Where it's the kind of the wording about what you agree on. So, like, if you're talking about fairness, is the rule or the thing that we're agreeing on how that takes shape and what that looks like, or is it just that statement of like
the notion of fairness?
Trying to be fair,
agrees with the
and
notion
then everything
of
goes
fairness,
towards that. We'll try different tactics, but the thing that we all agree on is that fairness is important.
We want things to be fair, right? That's the need. We need things to be fair. We can argue about how we do that.
Exactly. There's tactics and strategies,
right?
and
the need we all share. Absolutely.
But all working towards those few core tenets of like, if it's not towards this, we can have a conversation on, okay, maybe when isn't fairness important? It sounds like it always is. Maybe a couple that we all agree on. Oh, okay. In these situations, maybe security is more important. But the overall framework of just that really loose statement of like fairness is important. Can we all agree on that? Great. Can we maybe make it like a little bit more precise and we all still agree? No? Oh, okay, then we'll just keep it there.
Yeah, that's a real problem. As soon as you start to get precise about what do you mean by fair, then you're into rule books and arguments and wars. But the thing we can all agree on is we want things to be fair.
Right.
But so in the Bret Weinstein talk that most of us listen to, he talks about hating utopians, not liking utopians, and his main argument, which I am 100% for, is that when you maximize for one trait, it costs everything else because of diminishing returns. And so we can all agree that that fairness, connection, needs met, all of those things, but because there are different orders for us, we don't agree on how much you need to do, right? Because there's always the diminishing return. If we can actually figure out the diminishing return, then that's the point. Like, it's like, right, so fairness, even if my highest order is fairness, I can't have every resource go into fairness because it costs everything else in society. And so finding the point of diminishing returns, and we're really bad at that in society, like parenting. I just wrote this tweet of like parenting where I'm like, I think I figured out the diminishing returns on parenting. I look like a crap parent because I'm not willing to put in every last second of my time and energy into my kid Because quite frankly, that would hurt her more than it would help her. And it would definitely hurt me more than it would help me. And it's like finding, but like as a parent, I'm supposed to, right? Like every last ounce of every energy, every dollar should be going to her. And it's like, no, that
so it's sort of like
that sounds like,
sorry,
that sounds like a universal principle. That sounds like universal principle of. Sorry, Adriel, go ahead.
I think we may have been sort of saying the same thing in different ways. Take the Pareto principle, right? Where it's like 20% of in the case of Pareto, the P's generate 80% of the stuff, where it's like you identify that and you say, that's the most important thing. That if we're saying that fairness is important, you find your diminishing return, you find that initial part where 20% of the work gets you 80% of the way there. And you try to do that across the board. You identify all these different things where, okay, fairness is important. We could theoretically organize a society around that entirely because we're saying it's important. But other things are also important. So we identify each of those things, find out where, the Pareto principle, that universal thing happens where, okay, here's where the diminishing return happens for all of these things, and try to hit that same level across the board.
There's something here of like the Pareto abundance, the abundance piece of Pareto principle, and that when you feel you have abundance, you act from a better place. But part of it is you don't feel you have an abundance because of the Pareto principle, right? You're like, I'm doing the 80%, I'm the 20%. It's like, yeah, here, but somebody else is doing it somewhere else. And so to truly say, what is your abundance, right? What do I need? Can I own that I feel abundant? What do I need to feel more abundant without needing it to be geared to what society has? Because that doesn't actually bring you abundance, right? Having the car your neighbor has, you might think it does, but then you have it. If like everyone has cars, it's not helping you feel superior. Do you actually need it / want it? And like having the interpersonal abundance of like, do I feel abundant with this diminishing return in society of like, where's my Pareto principle, right? Like, where do I give and feel good about it? Maybe I'm never going to be the 20% anywhere, but I'm, the 5% next to it so many places, right? And it's like, cool, or not. Maybe you're the lowest and everywhere, but you're there. You're participating.
And with a lot of this, our ability to measure it is going to be suspect at best. So we're not going to hit that exactly 20%. I think if we're using the Pareto principle as an example, it's saying, okay, if we were to be as efficient as possible, let's say we take the top 25% of the yield and harvest it, that means the last 75%, we're going to see them on the ground saying, why aren't we picking that? It's right there. You're like, because there's only one P in each of them and it's just not worth it. And it's sort of being able to identify it and saying, okay, if fairness is super important, here's our biggest returns. Here's the things that we can do easily to get the best return. Here's sort of where the cutoff happens. Here's all of the things that, as far as we know, aren't worth it, right? Like it takes so much to implement, and we'll only get that much back. If we learn new information where maybe that changes, great, we can reassess it. But it's figuring out and sort of identifying where the diminishing returns are, sort of agreeing on, in an ideal world, we could do everything that implemented fairness, but we're saying these, 10 or 20 things, we're not sure how that would work. So right now we're all agreeing to not do that thing. And that's the, 75% of the peas that are left unharvested, which looks really bad if you're the gardener. You're like, why didn't you? There's still so much left to do. Yeah, that's intentional. I'm doing other stuff. I'm doing that 25% in every field.
I think what I'd love to see is a bunch of all the different things that are sort of like fairness. So, it's like we all agree on fairness and we all agree that justice is important. And, like we kind of had a list of, say, 10 things, if you like.
Yeah, I like the list that Richie started in the document, that list of the non-rivalrous and non-violent and those things, starting that kind of a list where you might be able to start to dissect them and group them and stuff. But yeah, actually being able to list them out and saying, here's it. Do we all agree? Who disagrees and why?
Yeah, not with the order, but that they are all important.
Agrees with fairness.
And then understand that, like, even if fairness is your top priority, right, we're never going to get to the 100% fairness because of the diminishing returns.
We're also not going to get to 100% agreement.
No, that's a really, really, really good point. Absolutely right. It works on agreement as well, right? If you can get 80% of people behind an idea pretty easily because it's obviously good, then you don't need to fight tooth and nail for the other 20%. Fuck them. Fuck them. There's better ways to invest your time.
And those people who are in that last 20%, hopefully they're in the 80% in a bunch of other areas where
exactly. No, exactly. And that's the important thing to remember. That was brilliant, Jubilee. That was, for me anyway, that was super insightful. That was brilliant.
I think we just solved game B. I think we can end it here. We just did it. We're done.
I'll get the tequila.
I was actually just thinking that, so once you've got all of those, maybe instead of us trying to argue about which is most important, to instead be able to focus on which ones we feel are not being met for us at the moment. Right. So, so you're basically only looking to repair something rather than come up with some kind of abstract statement about
and
kind of locking yourself into some kind of definition. And then if you're doing this with a group of say 20 people who are all going around and saying, I feel like it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, then you can kind of go, okay, so in a solution try and find a way to make this more fair.
Right.
So not perfectly fair, but like less unfair, more fair. And just kind of have this sort of picture of like where things are out of balance.
Right.
And have that as the thing that we're sort of aiming towards rather than trying to, prioritize all the time based on some sort of abstract ideal. Anyway,
All right. Well, we're like 15 minutes almost gone, 60 minutes over at the moment. We usually just stop and then we just have this conversation without recording it. I'm glad we were still recording.
Yeah.
But would anyone like to give any closing statements before we say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube?
Just thanks for spending the time to chat with me. I know I'm super vague, but I'm figuring it out. It's going to be an out in the field kind of thing, but this was a useful chat. I like the ideas. I think the last 15 minutes was the best 15 minutes.
Absolutely. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And for anyone watching, take this home, tell your parents, identify the point of diminishing returns.
On everything. All right. Goodbye, community. See you next week. Next week, we're meeting at the same time at what was 2 p.m. our time. So an hour and 20 minutes ago from right this second, the one person watching. And we're going to be doing a solution raising. Which one? We don't know yet. Healthcare or food, it looks like, by the 2 people who've answered the survey. All right. Bye.
All right. Ciao.